Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in for tonight's roundtable, where we are going to be talking about the evolution of competitions, especially during this time, during a pandemic, when we are also separated from each other. What are their function? How can they still exist? Why should they still exist? Should they not? So we're going to tackle these questions, which are a lot, with an extraordinary panel, which I'm really happy to bring some wonderful colleagues here today who are going to be talking about it, and I'll let them introduce themselves as they speak to you for the first time. If you have questions at any point in time after this, I will go ahead and put my email up there as a fodder, so you can always email me at cocktailnerd@gmail.com if you have questions that I can communicate to this panel. And thank you all again for your time tonight. So I think just to kind of set this up, my two co-chairs on this panel, Lauren Mote and John Gakuru, we all had a chat and really thought about this. We're also all together on the educational panel for Tales, and this topic was something that, you know, is so important to us because many of us either, you know, I wasn't a big competition person. I did a couple, you know, and I got, you know, like second or third. Cool. But they were something you did. They were like learning how to, you know, challenge yourself in different ways. So we're going to talk through a bit of that. But, you know, they have been a really important part of how to support working bartenders and helping them build a brand equity, a name, and all of these different things. So, you know, as all these people here who have invested so much time and energy into their communities to raise up the next generation, some have been past winners, some run comps. We're going to go ahead and start with John. Hey, John.
Hi.
You give us a little chat about your experience with competitions and where it all started for you.
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, it's wonderful to be here, you know, in this virtual room with all of you. It's testament to this year and this craziness that we're dealing with, that we are all here. But in a normal year, we wouldn't all be in the same room. So this is lovely. Competition for me was really about gaining confidence and ability to look others in the eye and make them believe in whatever it was I was selling. My first ever competition, I think I was maybe 18 or 19 years old at TGI Fridays, UK. I started in the south of England, little town called Southampton, and we had an American bar trainer who taught me how to bartend. And yeah, that was my first competition. I came 33rd out of 400, and it never held me back. So competition really was about finding my own voice and finding my own confidence. So I'm really, really pleased to be here and work through this topic with all of you.
That's amazing. I love that, you know, TGI Fridays in your wheelhouse. We have some other you know, folks here who have been competitors in competitions. I'm going to go ahead and go to my partner to the north, Sabrine. If you want to just talk a little bit about, you know, you have competed in our competition, Speed Rack, but also global competitions for brands, and just a little anecdote, a bit about some of the skill sets or things that you gained from doing competition.
You learn a lot about yourself when you're in competitions, and so I still think even like today they're relevant. It's just interesting to see how the competitions are evolving and how brands are evolving to cope with all this and still find a way to support our communities and support our bartenders. And yeah, so like for myself, being in a competition helped me not only gain a little bit of momentum in my career and get noted, it helped me get a job. And so in that sense, you know, going back to our earlier conversation, it's really important because you're constantly being watched by all sorts of brands, all sorts of people. And you're like, hey, that person's really cool, or they speak really well, or I like their style. I want to hire them. I want to work with them. So competitions will always have a relevance for that reason. But this year, I think like we're doing some big competitions in Canada. Hennessy has always done a big one where, you know, you create 3 cocktails, blah, blah, blah. And there was always a prize at the end, like you get to go to cognac. That's the big, everyone loves that as a competition. But this year we've changed that a little bit. And so we're still asking bartenders to create for us. But what we've done is we've actually supported them in another way where we're asking them to create a cocktail for us, and we're putting it in a book and we're paying them for their content. And so that's kind of one way that we've kind of moved away from the competition this year, hoping to bring it back next year. But that's where we're at right now.
Did you actually get your gig through the result of competition?
Yes. Yeah, so when I did the Belvedere comp quite a few years ago, there wasn't an ambassador for Canada for Belvedere, and then at the time it was Claire Warner and Ali Danienko. They were saying they couldn't get to Canada often enough. You know, it's such a big country. It's so hard to fly from one city to the next because there's so many time zones in this country. So they pushed for it on their end from the maison. And then I was asking our distributor in Canada, Chart & Hobbs, like, hey, is there an opportunity here? Can we talk about this? So yeah, the competition definitely got me the job.
Awesome. So I'm going to segue to Jack Sotti, because I know Jack has also been on both sides of the coin and has now is working for the company that he won competitions with. So Jack, if you can just give us a few anecdotes about what it was like for you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest part for me about any competition is community. And from the get-go, it was just meeting people and getting myself out there. I wasn't very good at first. And I saw all these inspiring, incredible bartenders that I kind of wanted to be in their shoes. So it gave me a lot of inspiration. But similarly, you know, I was, you know, in the same room with these people. I was learning from them. I was mixing with them. And it's testament to this room that we're all in today. You know, I'm meeting all of you guys thanks to competition, really. And so now I'm head of advocacy for World Class in Great Britain, and you know, now it's bartenders that we're competing that are running the things, and we've got the weight of these huge brands and these global giants behind us, and we can really give back to the community everything that we got from it. And so it really comes from a really good place that I find, and now we're trying to pass it on to the next generation.
That's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and switch to Miss Lauren, because I think, you know, someone who I think you have a very different perspective on how you've done competitions, and you've done a couple, but you've very quickly jumped into, like Jack, on the education side of it. So just a little bit of how you feel your experience was with your competitions, and what they've done and for you right now, and how you've evolved from that.
Definitely, and it's very nice to be here and nice to see you all. So I've been a bartender for 20 years now, and in 2007 I left Toronto, where I grew up, where there was no cocktail culture at all. We were all just focused on wine at the time. So I left and moved to Vancouver, which was the smallest place in Canada to possibly move to, 600,000 people in the downtown core. And I thought, well, everyone seems to be exceptionally focused on bridging this gap between the front and back of house. So the chefs were involved in the cocktail programs, and bartenders were invested in the same way as sommeliers were in the food programs, in sort of tasting and sharing notes and flavors. And so in Vancouver, that's where I first started thinking that, you know, how I could contribute to cocktails was more of a creative standpoint. And working with the kitchen, there was nothing I wanted more than having this full encompassed team that could work side by side, front and back of house. And so the first competition I did was in 2007, and it was a bourbon competition, and I served a liquid creation, and then next to it an edible creation of the exact same cocktail, which at the time felt really cool. So I was really proud of myself, and I thought, well, this is amazing. I bet other places in the world are doing this. And then I quickly saw what was happening 3 hours away in Seattle. It was the exact opposite, and looked at what was happening in New York and London and everywhere else, and it was the exact opposite. And so I thought, well, I don't really have access to these markets, but what works in Vancouver is starting to get my name out. And so I'll just keep going down this path and see where it leads me. And so I guess for me, similar to John and Sabrine's notes, you know, I feel like it gave me the confidence to get out there, but then I was put on trial with showing the world what I was interested in, not necessarily what the world was interested in. And I felt that that allowed me to stumble occasionally, but I stayed true to, I guess, my values as a bartender of what was really most important to me: community, education, creativity, bringing chefs and bartenders together in the same room to create beautiful experiences. And, you know, I fast forward now, after having competed in World Class in 2015, I won Canada, but I didn't win the global final. I placed in the top 12. Jack 100% beat me by 8 spots. Charles, you know, was the winner, the global winner from the year before. I just think that winning isn't everything. It's what you take from the situation is the real win. And, you know, today I'm really excited to be the global ambassador of World Class and have a major hand in the way that we develop community programs for 350,000 bartenders in 60 countries. And it's limitless what we can do, like Jack said, with big global giants behind us, with an appetite to really change and create culture with education.
Yeah, so LP, I'm going to kind of shift to you really quick because I think something that Lauren just said there really tapped in. It's like what you can take, you know, what you can get from these experiences and how you can take them and apply them to do things that are completely not even related to the comp. So I think you've kind of exemplified that for me. So that if you want to talk to people about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so my name is LP and based in DC. So I competed in World Class last year, and it was probably like the 4th competition I've ever done. And I honestly had no intention of applying at all because I was very terrified of the competition. And my local ambassador encouraged me and, you know, was like, you can do this. So I applied, and kind of going through it, realized, yeah, I can do this. Like, this is definitely like a tangible thing. Like, it's not way over my head. And along the way, realized, you know, there were a lot of valuable things that came out of it that I didn't even realize that I would gain. You know, there was community. I know we say these things like, oh, I gain community, I gain friends, but truly, like, you know, most of the people in this room who work with Diageo are like good friends of mine, and that's amazing. And along the way have been supported in projects that I've executed. So I'm now a co-founder of a company called Focus on Health with Alex Jump based in Denver, and, you know, was able to officially gain Lynnette Marrero as my mentor, which is awesome. And, you know, spend my days really fighting and advocating for the things that I believe can provide a much safer and more educated environment for the food and beverage community. And you know, looking back, definitely did not think that would be something I gained. And I did not win World Class, but kind of piggybacking on what Lauren Mote said, I didn't win World Class, but I did win. And I think that's what the most important thing is. I would never have imagined I'd even be teaching a seminar at Tales. And you know, it's just really, it's amazing when you are doing something that you're passionate about, what ends up coming out of it at the end of the day. So don't think that, you know, things that you're looking at are not tangible, because they are in more ways than you know.
All right, I'm gonna end. I think that's all of our competitors except for one that I have not called on purpose, because Mr. Charles Joly, like, first of all, when he entered World Class and won, he was one of those people who already won. Like, if he entered a competition, I was like, wow, I hope I at least like get a scratch at second, maybe. Charles was already established, had owned an establishment and bar. And so I think when you entered, and this is when the US was just getting into global comps, because it was very complicated for a long time to admit US competitors into all the global competitions. So we were kind of our own little silo for a long time. And when you entered, it definitely, I noticed. I was like, I'm sure there's a few others who were like, whoa, Charles is like going back in the ring. What's going on? So and it's obviously like done, you know, giving you a lot of different ways of, you know, so I think just to see the different career shift. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was, I had kind of retired up until World Class came around from competitions, but I mean, the beauty of these things is that no one remembers the ones that you lose but you. And so, like, nobody remembers who took 33rd in the 2007 TGI Fridays, you know, competition in Southampton. You know, that's only a learning experience for the people that do get involved in it. But when I started, I mean, I got right away when I got into cocktail bartending, I got into competitions because it really was a network. Like you know, I agree, you know, you say community, but it's so true, because our as bartenders and as the hospitality community globally, like everyone's gonna, like, you know, by and large is supportive of one another. But if they don't know what you're doing, or if they don't know what projects you're working on, then they can't support them. So if it gives you a stage to get in front of people and meet other like-minded individuals, then that's, you know, that's fantastic. And for me, like, think about the way any of us work. Like, we work long hours. You're working 50, 60-hour weeks easily a lot of times, especially if you've picked up management at your bar or you're running a beverage program. So you look at the same dozen people all of those hours, and you're looking at the same four walls day after day. So, you know, when you do these comps, it takes you out of your comfort zone, and all of a sudden you get experiences that you're sharing with dozens of people, maybe hundreds of people from other backgrounds and other bars. And so it's just, like, it's such a leap fast forward for your learning and for, you know, anything from techniques to the people you know. So and I mean, we've seen it come together. And I'll say when COVID hit, I mean, and it was, you know, a tornado that just came out of nowhere. Within a week, you know, and Lauren is here, who was really instrumental in the world-class community sessions that popped up. And it was like, what can we do right now to get us all talking? And I couldn't believe how good it felt to jump on and be on a Zoom with 30, 40, 50 people from around the world. And just to, like, we're all in this together, and then have that moment. Like, I'm not a Zoom person at all. I, like, FaceTime was probably like my least favorite thing in the world prior to this happening, but I was so relieved. It felt so good to be in that virtual room with everyone. And I think that's just a great example of what the community can do when it needs to, you know, and we figure out, we adapt, we figure things out very quickly. It's part of being in the bar world. We work in adverse conditions every night, and somehow, you know, we make it to the next day.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you. The community coming together, and I think using the platforms that already existed, by every different company who had a competition circuit, who was able to adapt it to something new, was really great to see. And it was definitely stuff that kept me tuning in and kept me focused. But I think we've just really tackled a lot of the things that have come from this. Like, self-improvement is a big part of what seems to have come out of competitions. Transferable skills, these have been the ones we've talked about. I'm going to save a couple of those for a minute, but I think, you know, I want to call on Ryan really quickly because, you know, after judging Sapphire this year, Most Imaginative, I did a date with LP and Alex Jump, because they're both like talking, you know, I saw Alex's presentation, which I was very impressed by. You know, the last time I had judged that competition was when I was literally the IBA technical judge in Philly, like 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, okay, I'm the one who's gonna be like, you didn't wipe that bottle when you did that, but okay. But I was very impressed to see how it had changed, and then to be able to, like, match make, because people were having the same ideas. So if you just talk a little bit about, you know, what was the, like, how did you guys think about changing what the competition was to kind of satisfy these needs that we're talking about?
Well, first of all, I'm absolutely humbled to be here. It's amazing to be amongst this group. This is dope. And I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I see a lot of people talking a lot about competitions and whether they're relevant or not. For me, you know, my story, doing it with Juan and going through Legacy, you know, I entered initially competitions very selfishly. I felt like LA wasn't getting a fair shake, and I wanted to show the world what I had, you know, shake my fist. And I quickly realized that competitions are much more than that. It became very clear to me that the creativity and the absolute breadth of what's happening, not only across North America, but across the world, had to be shown. And when I got brought on to Bombay, they were already talking about wanting to take MIB to the next level. It was already something that, you know, they were in the works on. And I was really fortunate to be involved in a brand that preaches creativity to the nines and preaches this idea of, like, you know, influencing, enforcing the importance of creative outlets, passions, and all these artist concepts. And they opened the doors, and they always say, build something that you want, give someone the gift that you want for yourself. And so for me, it was all about unleashing the diversity of creativity that's out there. It was just, let's open the floodgates and let's showcase how we're all bartenders, but we come at it. I have a degree in minimalistic photography. Like, everybody's coming at it from a different angle and shooting at the same point, which is this perfect cocktail. And so let's open the doors and let's people express that. And, you know, like you mentioned, Alex and all that she did with FOH, she won our creative grant project because of the beauty of how she came at it. And it's a non-conventional way, but it was amazing. It was amazing. So I think that's really key, is highlighting this, everything that goes on around bartending that makes you unique, that gives you that personalized stamp.
I'm going to go ahead and call on Andrea because we've had a conversation about kind of these other topics. And then Juan, I would like you to also unmute so y'all can kind of chat about it, because I think you both feel very strongly that, you know, there's so many other parts of who a bartender is, and there's so many other talents. And, you know, sometimes competition could be a vehicle for those things to shine that we don't see every day, right? When you're just trying to like get your drinks created and done, it's like you're not every day, you're not reinventing your menu. So just wanted to let you both kind of talk a little bit about those other self-improvement skills and what it comes in. So I'll let Andrea start, and then Juan will talk about legacy and how you saw what the bartenders were bringing.
Sure. So my name is Andrea Meriwether, proud native of Bourbon Country. And I co-founded a competition, She's Raising the Bar, and it was about taking away the intimidation for women creating cocktails that were whiskey-based, like just removing that whole stereotype that it was a male spirit. Women could put their own spin and interpretation on how they were raising the bar for Women's Heritage Month. And I wanted them to really just think about how they would narrate and storytell their cocktail experience in an educational way. So what I did was I hosted educational seminars for like a month prior to Women's Heritage Month so that they could learn about bourbon classic cocktails, the stories behind the creations of the brands, stories about women heroines in the bourbon and whiskey industry, and really just create their own interpretation of that experience. I believe that when we create this space for people to make their own narratives and own their own interpretations, we create new equity opportunities in the spirits industry for talent. And we make them real entrepreneurs. We force this new energy of professional development and really put them in a core space to be owners of their art and their curation. So I think that's so important, and I hope to continue to do that for future and prospective talent.
Awesome, and here's Juan. Everybody, I'm honored too to be here. I think we should do this once a month. It's quite fun and beautiful to see each one of you. Like, I worry about my people, and you guys are my kind and my family at the end of the day. So I'm honored to be here. All right, competitions, amazing. So a cocktail is simply a language that we all speak. We communicate through cocktails. And I think competitions are that opportunity for a continuing education that a bartender should have. It's the opportunity of networking, as Charles said. It's the opportunity of winning or not winning, as LP say, but we always win. It's finding the right angle on the things that you might take. But what's important about it is like getting the bartender to be at his best. And that's important, you know? Either we are bartenders, brand ambassadors, consumers, we all communicate through cocktails. And yes, things change. We need to get better at what we do. We need to move things. Competitions change all the time too. And of course, there's years that you see people with like a leverage of passion that is incredible because they finally understood what this competition is about. And it is important for all of us to understand that there's different types of competitions. Of course, there's different brands, there's different magnifying glass that will like look for something different than others, but at the end of the day, they all lead to the same road, which is like finding a true professional behind a brand, behind a style of cocktail, etc. And in my opinion, it is important for us to cultivate the education of a competition. Once we educate bartenders, when we prepare them for this type of events, we're giving them a lot of knowledge. We're preparing them for them to be better at their jobs, behind their bars, dealing with consumers, with brand ambassadors, with brand people, etc. Is then absorbing the tools to do a better job. And at the end of the day, every competition brings that. Even TGI Fridays will bring that, right, Colin? But at the end of the day, is all that conglomerate of things that we get to serve them on a tray. They get to take some of those tools, apply them to their careers, and then off they go. But it's important to make sure that they go with some of those tools, not just to pass through a competition, through an event. Oh, I went to Puerto Rico, it was a free trip, amazing, and I didn't win, I'm back to my bar. It's not about that. It's, I think, the follow-up, the care and the connection, the link that you build, the bond that you've been built with that person, which makes a competition amazing. Thank you.
All right. Wow, that's a lot. Thank you both for those perspectives. So we're gonna move into it a little bit. I mean, I don't want to like be like, hey, it's speed rack time. It's a little bit of speed rack time because there's so many wonderful humans on here who are part of that, whether you'll have judged, been there as like someone who's supported us, have begged us to come to your country for the first time, all those different things. And then a lot of the things I want to talk to that have come out of that. But, you know, Speed Rack was one. I mean, we were a competition. Ivy, unmute so we can chat together with this. But, you know, this came up earlier in another conversation. But, you know, we were one of the first competitions that kind of challenged everyone to work together in the same space. We're like, hey, all brands, it's cool. You can do a comp to yourself, but in a real bar, there's everything. And our competition is about everything. So that was interesting. So Ivy, you want to just kind of talk through a little bit of like, you know, how, you know, competition has changed and what the vehicle is and you know, our global partners here. So Lisa unmute, Holly unmute, all of our global champions, because we'll introduce who they are.
I mean, I think that Speed Rack is unique in that when we first started, we were like, we're going to design our competition and our sponsors as if we were designing our back bar. And our back bar isn't all the same portfolio, right? So we were like, hey, Pernod Ricard, hey, Bacardi, hey, Diageo, let's just get in a big circle and hug because that's how most back bars are. And that's what we're going to design. We think the best cocktails are made with these spirits. And it was amazing to see people come together with, I mean, mostly you. At that point, I was just like, no one knew who I was. And I partnered with you, which is part of the great thing about cocktail competitions in general, is that it can really raise you up. I competed in a few cocktail competitions. I won an iPad in a puree competition once, way back in the day. But it was like first generation. Actually, we use it at Speed Rack still, and it bugs out constantly. But you know, Lynnette, I got to work with Lynnette with her relationships with different brands to create Speed Rack, and that was really interesting. I still think that for more or less, we're kind of the only competition that still gets to toe this line of like, when we're all in this room, we all gotta be like, hey, that is the best gin in the world, or that is the best, you know. But Speed Rack has changed, you know, a lot over the last few years, last decade that we've been doing this. You know, I feel like one of the great things about this panel that we're all on is that we're talking about the beauty of competitions, but also that competitions are changing, and they're changing a lot right now. You know, I've judged Diageo World Class. I've judged Bacardi Legacy. I am, you know, I I actually entered Diageo World Class way back in the day, and I, bombed, lost to Jeff Bell. But I think what's the silver lining of all of this is that there are communities, such strong communities that are made within all of these competitions, whether it be Speed Rack, whether it be any of the other ones. And we always kind of tout oh, now you're part of this family. And I think what COVID-19 has done is really making these families big. So I've seen it with watching people who competed in World Class, for example, and all of a sudden you see these Instagram lives happening of people from all over the globe, and their connection is because of that. So now we're almost like this lip service we've done of like, you're in a big family, and everyone's like, yeah, I gotta work. Now all of a sudden you really see that going into place, and I think that's the silver lining. And I hope going forward in the future of cocktail competitions, we can see that really embraced and nurtured. Because I mean, we always like at every Speed Rack chat, I'm always like, blah, 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 this is the run of show, blah, 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 doesn't matter if you win or lose. And everyone's like, shut up. But in the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you win or lose, because if you're there, you're making those connections, that's kind of what matters. I know I didn't answer your question, but.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go to Holly and Lisa to, and Lauren. But Lauren, we, like when you wanted to bring the competition, and not even specifically Speed Rack, I know like this is one of them, but obviously in Asia and in Mexico, there's all these competitions go. But you had a particular reason for wanting to bring these type of competitions down, and I guess kind of from your perspectives, and this is to give a really big global view of what competitions do for your regions, why they're so important. Who wants to start first? Lisa or Holly?
I could definitely start if you like. Well, I actually met you and Ivy at a Jameson cocktail competition trip, and then relentlessly bothered you for 7 years until you let me do Speed Rack in Mexico.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, it really works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I think competitions with an altruistic or philanthropy element are definitely going to last the test of time, which I think is why Speed Rack has been so successful, because some competitions I find can be a little hollow when they're run by the brands because there's too much of a marketing agenda pushed. Obviously not the very successful ones are all very well run across the board usually, but some of the smaller comps I find that it's too much about the brand and it doesn't really draw people in, whereas Speed Rack, the competitors really care about it, the brands care about it, the community cares about it, because it has a different focus. So I find that, and also in emerging markets where the cocktail scene is younger, it is really, really good to have something that focuses on bringing women forward, because women tend to be more reticent about entering in competitions and promoting themselves. So that in Mexico, it certainly was a very strong response that we got. Women who are kind of at the top of their game here definitely got on board to help us promote it. A lot of them competed. But we had entries from all over the country from people none of us even knew, like the organizers didn't know. So I think definitely competitions with a heart and a soul, I think, are where it's at and where it's going.
Holly?
So yeah, much like Lisa, I kind of was like, hey, Lynnette, Ivy, hey, I want to bring Speed Rack to Hong Kong. So there'd been a season in Asia a couple of years prior in Singapore, and I wanted to do it again. And I think this isn't relevant, but it kind of is. So it was Asia, so like the whole region, but we held the finals in Hong Kong, where I'm based. And it goes without saying that Hong Kong's really been through the ringer the last year or so. So in that sense, it was I mean, it was touch and go whether we could have the competition or not. But it was really nice to bring the community together as well, and also, to show other people that like things weren't so terrifying here, and that we're all still, our bar scene is still alive and thriving. But I think the good thing with Speed Rack is, there is no real prize at the end. It's just bragging rights, and the fact that so many people still enter without you know, this agenda of winning something at the end is really what makes it important. And I think, you know, I'm not sure about other speed racks around the world, but a lot of the women who entered Speed Rack Asia are quite young. So they hadn't really traveled around. They hadn't met other women in the region. So it was really nice to get them into one room and get them all to meet and like come out of their shells as well. And, you know, some awesome things came out of it. So Summer Lowe, who was the winner of Speed Rack, who's based here, works at the Four Seasons Hong Kong. We got her an interview with BBC Asia, which is just like wild. Like I cried. I was so proud of her. You know, it wasn't great that we had to get up at 5 a.m. the next day after Speed Rack. You know, but like I said, there's no prize, but there's no value on an interview with BBC. Like, you know, that's priceless. And that's done great for her. She's, you know, and like I said, all the women in the competition, whether they went through to the final 8, they've all connected and become friends, and everyone got something out of it. And like I said, not making it about Hong Kong, but the community, we really got something out of it as well, to come together. And like, you know, to reiterate what Lynnette said, get the brands together, because brand representation is a little bit smaller in Hong Kong. A lot of it comes out of Singapore. So again, to show these brands like, hey, shut up, be friends, get in one room and hang out together. That was really good too. So yeah, it done wonders for us. And Lynnette and Ivy said, I was like, I'm never doing this again. And they were like, you'll do it next year. But so like, I'm partially grateful for COVID, because like I almost lost half my hair, like stressing out about it last year. So but 2021 we'll be back, baby.
I'm gonna call on Miss Anne Louise over there in her I Love Chris Patino hat. Chris Patino, sending a little love out to you, obviously, who's been a big part of Speed Rack fam. But you know, with I think with cocktail fights has been a really interesting thing, because you created collaboration amongst bartenders. So it's like, which is, I think has been really cool. And a lot of our Speed Rack ladies have got on to work on that. And I love to see like how Ferguson, it like took that moment of collaboration, has expanded it to like their whole new concept. But if you just talk a little bit about, I guess, kind of what you see, you know, you're part of Treat Advocacy. So this is where we're going to branch into all of our brand folks here. So I'm prepping you a little bit, but you know, you all constantly have to kind of justify budgets for these kinds of things. And what, you know, I know there's a lot of fighting back and forth. Like when somebody gets cut, like the easiest thing to cut is like, oh, well, do we really do that competition? And y'all are like there fighting constantly. So I'll let you all kind of weigh in. But, you know, how do you kind of justify this and the overall scheme of not scheme of things, but when you look at a budget, how do you justify why you're doing these things, and how they interact, and just a bit of like your personal experience with them?
My name's Anne Louise Marquis. I work with Campari America. My pronouns are she, her. You asked like 3 questions, so I want to jump back just to saying cocktail fights evolved into a partner competition because we know that people love to work together. And our prize wasn't so big, and our competition wasn't so prestigious, and the ask of that event is so ridiculous that it's way more fun if you have a person with you, like a buddy. And we know that people like to work in partnership, and so that's what that competition was all about. Was about the teamwork between 2 people. I'm speaking about in the past tense just because we haven't done it this year. And it was really special. And like what everyone said, it's really about the community and the group of people that come together to be part of it. So with our program, you just asked like, how do we fight for budget, or why is it worth it, right? I mean, that's a much larger question, and I think could be like a whole nother seminar, is like, what is the importance of trade engagement or trade marketing? Like why is that valuable? But at the end of the day, I forget the stats, so I'm gonna mess this up, but it's something like 65% of the decisions about a drink that get made are decided by the bartender. So for us, it's really important to stay in contact with the bartender and stay front of mind and stay participating in their education and their lives throughout their careers at different places. So we need to stay in touch with them. So there's lots of different ways to do that. And competitions are a really great way to encourage people to be creative and to work with your brand. Like full stop, right? Like make something with our product. And then our competition asks people to invest a little emotionally and to have as much fun as possible. And I think that that like creates a bond. So I don't know if I answered your question, but we're always trying to find connections with bartenders. I think it is always on the chopping block, and we always pull it back on because it is so important to stay connected to our bartending community, especially now.
Laura, I'm going to have you tag in here a little bit on this, because I know, you know, a lot of you came from bartending, are now working on the corporate side. So, you know, what do you look for when you're looking to, you know, why do you invest in competitions? You know, Seedlip, why do you fight for those opportunities for your brand?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And hi guys, I'm Laura. I'm US Seedlip. And for me, I'm just going to say it. I was like, maybe I should say this or maybe I shouldn't. I was a total competition hater when I was a bartender. I didn't do a single one. Actually, I did one because a brand invited me to a Yankees game and then surprised me in the box and told me there was a competition, but I didn't know it going in. I thought I was just going to watch a game. So that's the only one I ever did. But I just thought they were a distraction. I thought they were this like thing that people who were trying to be super self-promoting did, and I was really busy like running my bar program and working my shifts. And now I think, having been on the other side of it, especially, you know, being a sponsor of Speed Rack and being really kind of there for the whole run of the season, it's just incredible to see all the stuff you guys have said. Like, the community is, I think, obviously the biggest takeaway, but just the ability to like kind of learn and be creative. And there are so many different competitions that speak to so many different kinds of people. And I now see that I was being very silly by not kind of taking advantage of that when I was bartending. So just to get that out of the way. But also, as far as, you know, from a brand perspective for Seedlip, it's really, really important to me that we offer non-alcoholic options within these big industry events and within these sort of community building moments for the bar industry, and that non-alcoholic things can sit alongside, you know, these other incredible products that everybody's pouring. So for me, everything Anne-Louise said, 100%, but then also we have this like added layer of I want there to be no reason why, if you want to come to Speed Rack and you're taking a month off drinking, that you couldn't come and have a great drink, or if you're somebody who's super passionate about, you know, flavors and no and low alcohol drinks, and you want to make that as part of the round for your competition, that you don't have a product to work with. So for me, it's like, it's really about providing that platform for our brand and being kind of in the mix. And I think that's super important. And then, yes, thumbs up to everything Anne-Louise said too.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and tag in Miss Rhea. Hi, Rhea.
Hi, everybody.
So Rhea's been around a lot of these circuits, actually. Rhea joins the people who are traumatized by having to coordinate a global speed rack.
It's true.
She can join that club of time zones and phone calls. But also, she gets a rare view of being backstage behind these comps. And, you know, so much goes into what they are. And I think for you, I guess the question I have is just to kind of talk a little bit more about, you know, how these programs have kind of expanded, because, you know I've communicated with you for lots and lots of things on all different times. So just, you know, why do competitions need to exist, and how are they changing now in a way that we can still say is valuable? So I think some of the things you've done apply here.
Right. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Rhea Soler. I'm currently running Diageo. Hi, Ryan. Diageo World Class for the U.S. have been for the past 2 years, but as Lynnette said, I've been on the back of these competitions for about 10 years. I've always been too much of a wimp to enter any of them, so I really do have the behind-the-scenes look of what the competitors are going through, and my role has been since the beginning, in my mind, how to support them. And I think, Lynnette, you know, Ivy, and Louise, a lot of the people here we could talk to maybe 10 years ago, throwing some paint at the wall and saying, there you go, there's your beefeater competition. And we organized it a week ago and it's in this bar and you got an iPad. Isn't that great? And what the industry has learned from that, and now the level of commitment and creativity that goes into something like Most Imaginative or a Legacy or Cocktail Fights, the amount of brain power and passion that the people in this panel and you know, that have worked on these competitions bring into supporting the people that are competing so that they are able to grow personally and professionally. And I think that our industry as a whole has really benefited and grown with that. So now in the point that we're at with COVID-19 and how things are changing in our community, the challenge to us and to the communities that we've created together is how do we continue to bring that passion and that creativity into the next chapter of what bars and bartending is. And I don't think I have all of the answers to it, or maybe even one, but I do think that it has to continue to be about education and creativity so that bartenders continue to want to be engaged, and we can do our jobs to support them, to have them continue to, yeah, absolutely reach for our brands because they pay the bills and they're great brands, but also so that these sort of conversations can happen afterwards of the connections that were made and the lives that really did grow because of them. Did I answer the question? Okay, good.
Unmute. Sorry. No, you did answer the question, and you always answer quite eloquently. So for those, I'm gonna prep you guys all in the chat in a second for the hardest question of the night before we sign off. But I just kind of want to ask everyone, and I'll let people just raise their hand who wants to talk first. You know, have you seen any competitions that have launched during this time that have been successful, that have had you know, that have like, you see them come out, like obviously like I'm moderating a panel tomorrow about brands launching in a pandemic. So it's like all these people who had like, this was about to launch on March 15th. I guess no. So if anyone has seen anything, any examples of things that have, obviously I think everyone took a nice and well-needed breath of moment for competitions, or any of those things did come back, and it came back to engaging your communities and bringing them together in education. But has anyone else seen other examples of things that have happened? So Jack, you're first up.
I mean, rather narcissistically, a program that we're running in GB, we tried to pivot and change world class to be something that was way more relevant. And aside from all the education, we wanted to make it accessible. And I think one of the number one things that competitions can be sometimes is a little bit expensive. Depending if you're really keen, you know, it takes a lot out of you emotionally and sometimes financially. And so we wanted to level the playing field. There's a lot of people that might necessarily be out of a job temporarily. They might not have a place to make their drinks. So we kind of kickstarted the competition. We sent out stock and equipment and all sorts of stuff to all the people that signed up to compete, to make sure that there was nobody that had a financial advantage over one another. And we had very specific guidelines. So we kind of jumped on the bottled cocktail trend, of course, as anyone would. But the beauty of that is that all the serves must be the same. They must be served in the same bottle. So you really can't get any extra points for buying hand-blown glassware. And so I think leveling the playing field and being hyper aware of everyone's situation is really important.
Charles, was that you raising your hand or just scratching your head? Careful with the context clues here. John, you seem ready, and then Ria.
I think for me, there's a couple of things. It's not that I've seen a competition launch necessarily during COVID or during the pandemic, but certainly the conversations that are going on behind the scenes to try and establish what is coming next. How can we empathetically deal with our industry and those that have really struggled through it? I'll add another layer to that. Part of the kind of topic of this round table is, you know, what's right, what's appropriate. Are competitions even, you know, are they tone deaf in this moment in history? For me, I would say everything that you all have had to say about the value of a competition, what it brings to you personally and professionally, tells me that there is a place for competitions in our industry for the long term. Now, the brains in this room too, and all around those watching, and not just the ones in this room, but in our industry, the brains, we have the ability, the capability to think through this and put programs together and competitions together that deliver that creativity, deliver that sense of networking and community. And I think I am genuinely inspired and heartwarmed, you know, by all of your stories here in this panel, because I'm part of those conversations that happen with the big drinks companies, with the big brands who have the money to invest, but they want to do it in the right way. They don't want to land some ugly, clunky competition that you know, that's insensitive and would do more damage than good. So I just wanted to get that out there, that I am really encouraged by all of the stories that I've heard, and I know there is a path through this, and I know we can land competition in the right way if we just take a moment to think about it and come from a position of empathy and sensitivity.
All right, Rhea and then Holly.
Well, I work with John, so go figure. He basically just said what I was going to say. But just to add on to that, I think what Jack said there is so important. How do we level the playing field? And I think, you know, this is obviously a global panel that we're sitting on, but for a US market, we have so many hoops legally that we have to jump through in order to make things work in this country that's very unique, that might not happen in others. And so we have that additional level of challenge on how we level the playing field and make the competition in this time where people are making less money, make it something that they're not out of pocket to do, and that possibly even gives back, so that they are doing double duty as something that helps the community as well as helps the competitor.
Absolutely. Holly, and then I'm going to have Ivy jump in, and then Juan. Okay.
Thanks, Lynnette. Just to reiterate what John said, like, there is clearly a place. And I think that the fact that, like, a lot of the awards are going ahead as well this year, but everyone's, you know, flipped how they're doing things to not make it tone deaf. But sorry to open a can of worms when we have 10 minutes left, but I guess it's just a question for all of you guys that I'm just curious to know people's thoughts. And there's no right or wrong answer, of course, but do you guys think that things are going to change in competitions forever going forward? Or do you think that we'll end up going back to our old ways, you know, whether that's 2021 or 2022? Or do you think that, I mean, of course, like, the purpose of this discussion is to see whether competitions are relevant, and we've concluded that. But what do you guys think? Do you think we're going to change going forward, or do you think we will just slip back to our old ways?
Wait 2 seconds before I let anyone answer that question. I'm going to call on Juan and Ivy, and then that is going to be our closing loop, and everyone will speak to it. And I won't let
I'll be quick.
I won't let the Zoom in until we all speak to that. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. Thank you, Lynnette. And I think, you know, we all in this call, we're part of the change. We're part of the progress that's going to happen. And great questions, great conversations. Of course, things are changing, and we are trained and designed for all these kinds of, like, adverse things that will bring change or progress, whatever it is. Right now, I think, you know, the most important thing is us concentrating our efforts as brand, as influencers in the industry, as mentors to others, to rebuild what we have lost a little bit and change it. Like, the bar industry is devastated. We didn't have a safety net, and God knows what's going to happen, but we have each other. I think, like, events like today, like this, what we just did, and thank you again for inviting me, encourage others, you know, hang on, be there. We're the best, you know, it doesn't matter. Like, we are the best at what we do. And if you choose to be a bartender and you're listening to me out there, you chose the right career. You bring joy to people, you bring joy to yourself, and it's amazing. You're going to have a family that is international, that is just like in diapers, as I want to call it, because we're going to keep on growing no matter what. So yes, things are going to change, but we have each other. And thank you again. Thank you, Lynnette.
Ivy, really quickly, and then we're going to start with everyone to answer. The Holly, this one you invite, like, writers to the journalists, but we'll have a good question with that. Ivy, and then
yeah, so I mean, right before COVID started, Lynnette and I were asked via Speed Rack to put on the cognac competition for the US, the BNIC, and trying to promote the cognac category. And then we had to change pretty quickly, realizing when everything kind of shut down. I think that the benefit of competitions can be that, my dogs are coming in, sorry. The benefit of cocktail competitions now are that bartenders are out of work, bartenders don't have a lot of time. Which can be honestly sometimes a good thing. We can give education, which is what Rhea and other people have talked about, to learn about different things. I mean, even in the seminars that I attended for the cognac thing, I was like, I literally forgot all this stuff since I did Bar 5 Day. I was like, great. And now I'm re-educated, thank God. And there's a financial aspect as well that's really beneficial. You know, in the US, it's complicated, but in other places in the world, there are ways in which we can enter competitions and be compensated financially. And even if where you live that's not possible, you can be compensated in other ways by that level of attention that you get. And I think that in this time and age, when bartenders are working less hours, earning less tips where you're earning tips, working less hours, period, it's really important to be able to garner some sort of financial importance and value. And that's really possible with cocktail competitions. Like, and I'm gonna go on one little tangent, that's it. People get brand jobs. Like the amount of people who I see who go up and do cocktail competitions who then are like, you know what? Like, especially as a woman, being like, maybe I want some more security. Maybe I want to have a family. Maybe I want to do this and want to do that. I'm gonna go to this side and like get a 401k. You can enter a cocktail competition now if that is what you want to start doing. Because internet or not, if you make a good impression, you can get a job and a secure position in a world that's not so secure right now. So that's right.
Lauren Mote, you're up. I'll repeat the question for everyone in the room. Do you think comps will change when we go back to normal, whatever that is, or do you think we'll just go back to our own ways?
Well, I think I guess from the point of view of competitions in general, but more specifically from the point of view of, I guess, world class. I mean, these are competitions and programs that have a singular name, and they started as a competition, but over the years, I mean, it's 12 years old. It's been flexible and has evolved so much over the years to go from a 12 or 18 person competition up to 60 people. And it's because we listen to bartenders, and I'm one of those bartenders that has a seat at the table to be able to sit in the room with marketeers and say, this is what we really need to be doing. Focusing on local markets rather than giant global programs. I mean, the local markets and local competitions can help inform what we do on a global level, but it's more about the global entity of something as big as world class helping to support and lead what we can accomplish in emerging markets and smaller communities in different countries around the world where it makes the most impact. That's the circle of influence that we need to focus on, and especially from the point of view of a bigger competition and a bigger program. I think the evolution of competitions, the new normal is now. It's highlighted fractures in the system where we really need to pay more attention. And I think this is more value adds that are creating bigger programs where competition remains as one specific portion of the program, but the program around it is evolving and getting larger to incorporate more of the things that bartenders need. And I think that is the way forward. And so I'm happy, as Ivy said, you know, the silver lining, there's silver lining in a lot of the things. We have to find the positive in a lot of the things that are happening. But I think from my point of view, the positive thing happening from this is that we listen, we pivot, we evolve, and then we start to make things better and just put things back together one day at a time.
Okay, I have my cue lined up for rapid fire on this. Laura Lashley, you are up next on this topic.
Yes, I think that, you know, you kind of touched on this, Lauren, but I think there are some cracks in how we have been conducting competitions, and maybe a level playing field and access has always been one of them that is now just a little bit more visible. And I think that, you know, we can take that awareness now into the way that we do this stuff ongoing, whether it's virtual or not. And I think also just, you know, reaching out to the people who might not know about these competitions. How do we get more people involved that this can really benefit and get excited about it? So that's my hot take. I think there'll be changes forever, but hopefully for the good.
Jack?
Yeah, I'll keep mine short. I think out of any great disaster or upset, there's always a few things that come out of it. You know, there's camaraderie, there's innovation, there's entrepreneurship, and we're seeing all of that in the industry. Definitely, they've changed forever. I think this has highlighted a lot of values that we hold dear to ourselves over the years that we didn't lose, but, you know, these competitions have been going for over a decade. So after a while, you know, they become much and much of the same thing, no matter how you try to reinvent it. And, you know, I hate to say that this has been a good thing because, you know, that's not, it's definitely not. But, you know, I'm very much a silver lining kind of guy. And I think it's really realigned all of us, all of our values to be pointing in the same direction. And it's going to really kind of turbocharge the industry and our relationships and the love, you know. So that's my take.
Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. I think, you know, for me, the perspective is definitely about accessibility. It's about inclusion. It's 100% about being able to recognize the bartender as a whole person and not just that their life should not revolve solely around the bar. And so it is about feeding more than just one aspect, but thinking about the person as a whole and who they are. And I think that attracting people through that is going to be what it's all about. So I hope to continue. I know this panel is definitely on that ticket, but continue to make this more accessible for sure.
All right, LP.
I actually wanted to talk about the other side of it, whether or not competitors will be more selective about the way they compete. And I think that because we are living in a virtual world, obviously there will be more opportunities and options, and being a little bit more mindful and selective about what we decide to, you know, to compete in essentially, and the programs we decide to partake in, ensuring that they truly align with our values, right? And additionally, ensuring that on the other side, the competitions are sustainable. So the changes that we're implementing, because they do take a lot of work, that whatever it is that we are changing still works when we do go back to the real world, as I like to put it.
ALM.
Yeah, I think also as well along the lines of you that every competition right now is being in the process of reinventing itself. Competitors are rethinking the way they're going to do things when they have the opportunity to do so. Brands are going to like have a different approach and a bigger impact some way. We're all thinking about this. I think even judges are right now have to change, you know, like we have to reinvent the way we do this and be more impactful in a way that our community becomes stronger and doesn't chumbles, you know, when things like COVID-19 happened. We need to like come out stronger out of this somehow with brands, with competitions, with interactions, and with bars. Thank you.
And Louise?
Okay, every single marketing meeting ever with any brand person, they're gonna go, we should do a competition. So yeah, they're gonna keep staying. I think the job is to make that work meaningful to the bartenders and to the community in some way. So I think that that's my hope, is that we continue to find, and like everyone's saying, inclusion and opportunity, but like meaning is gonna be the thing that makes people come back and continue to compete.
All right, Sabrine?
I agree with everything that everyone said so far. It's about inclusion. It's about making it accessible to everybody. And it's also like, what's going to be the direct benefit to these individuals competing? You know, how are we going to compensate them more than like, oh, things are different. We can't just send people on trips anymore. I mean, it's different in Canada, but it's, you know, we can't fly people everywhere. It's how else are we going to compensate them for their time, for their creativity? Like it's going to change for the better in the long run. It's going to benefit competitors. It's going to benefit bar programs and establishments a lot more in the future.
Yep. Okay, and next was Bria.
Yeah, what they all said. And to add to that, you know, there's a lot of heart and a lot of brain power in this room and in this industry as a whole, that we're all really working at this time together to put our heads together and make a positive change. So I think absolutely the competitions are going to change, and I think they're going to come out at the other side of this, the better for it.
Charles?
Yeah, I think that the timing of COVID is just, it's an insane, you know, crossover in history of everything else that's happening as well in terms of social equity and whatnot. So it's such an opportunity to hit reset on a lot of things. But I think it's even, you know, I think we'll get back to live comps once we can, and it's safe, and you know, to be in the same room together. I don't think that doesn't go away. People are going to want to be in rooms with other people and want to taste people's cocktails and want to, and want to do that. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how we adapt over the next, who knows, year and a half, who knows how long it's going to be to do this virtually. But I think it's even a bigger opportunity to look at more other aspects of the bar world and how that's going to adapt, because we're talking about all the needs these bartenders have. So, maybe some of these big portfolios use their lobbying power to make sure that everybody has health insurance, so we don't have to worry when something like this goes wrong that people are worried about getting sick or whatever. I think we're going to see tipping in the way that people are paid in their bars might change on the back end of this all. So I think there's a lot in the industry that's going to change, but I think the competition will survive and thrive and adapt now, and then get back to where we, somewhat where we were, and hopefully where we were, and then evolved as well, and more inclusive and more, with wise, a little more wide open.
Right, Lisa.
I think we've seen some competitions change already, certainly starting to celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit that's come out during COVID, and the way people have had to pivot and redefine their, especially bar owners, who are really financially more dependent on the outcome of the bar. So I think some competitions have already started celebrating that side of things, which I think is really important. And I think it's, a €20,000 investment in your bar right now is going to be a super help to a lot of people, or whatever the price might be. I'm just thinking of one in particular, but like we talked about a little earlier, that a lot of money gets spent on these competitions, and maybe now the showmanship and the event won't be as important as spending that budget on investing in the winner and hopefully making a difference to just one more bar.
All right, and Andrea.
Strategic alliances will matter. Evolve or die. That's where we're going. We're not going back. We're moving forward. Put some respect on the trade. Let these talented individuals know that they matter. New narratives, underrepresented talent that you don't normally see. Judges like me, I'm a Black woman. I've judged more whiskey competitions than any other talent that I know. Teaching them and fueling that entrepreneurial spirit, that they don't have to be just talent. They can grow and evolve throughout their competition phases. Maybe they started not knowing much of the classics, and now they can own that space. Real equity is where we're moving in the competition space.
Well, that's a mic drop if I've heard of one. So I'd like to thank all of you so much for your time today. This conversation could have easily been 2 hours long. Sorry, we went a few minutes over, but it was really important to everyone. And this group, thank you for being thought leaders and helping us with this today. Again, thank you to John and Lauren for helping me out on the concept and ideas. But thank you to everyone. Thank you for joining Tales of the Cocktail this year virtually. And I look forward to setting up more of these conversations about this, because this is not done yet. And everyone take care and have a great evening.
Thanks, guys.
Bye,
Bye.
One screenshot with everyone's cute little faces.
Stop recording.